This year, I read 3 books that opened my eyes about one extremely important concept in business from 3 different perspectives. So today, I want to pass that eye-opening knowledge to you in a very simple, understandable way. And I honestly believe it may change your business life just like it did mine. So let's get to it. See this setup? The multiple monitors, the terminal windows, virtual machines, the code. This used to be my entire world. I am a software and DevOps engineer by trade, and man, I loved getting lost in these complex engineering problems for hours and sometimes days of troubleshooting and fixing stuff where the time literally flew by so quickly. But here's the thing. When I started my own business, I thought all I needed to do was to be really damn good at building cloud infrastructure, automated IT processes, writing code, just do great engineering work and clients will come. Wrong. So freaking wrong. And I'm betting if you're watching this, you might be in the same boat. You're amazing at what you do. Maybe you are a designer, a videographer, a cook, lawyer, tax advisor, whatever your trade might be. And you thought starting a business was just about doing more of that thing that you are so good at. Let me save you some pain. That's the trap that kills most small businesses. So there I was, working 80-hour weeks, doing engineering consulting, building IT systems, teaching and training other engineers how to do all this stuff that I was good at, learning and reviewing various IT tools, running from client to client, and feeling completely overwhelmed. And the opportunities and work kept coming because I was a really good engineer. And this is what Michael Gerber calls the technician's trap in his book, The E-Myth Revisited. So here is the truth. If you really think about it, most businesses are not started by entrepreneurs. They are started by technicians, so people who are good at their craft, who suddenly had this entrepreneurial seizure. You know what I mean? That moment when you're working for someone else and think, why am I busting my ass for this company where I could do this myself and keep all the money? Because I'm already doing the actual work, so I might as well keep the revenue that the client is paying instead of just living off the salary. So you quit and you start your own thing. But here is what nobody tells you. Knowing how to do the actual work is maybe 10% of running and building a successful business. I was an excellent engineer, and that's why I was getting all these projects that were overwhelming me. But I knew nothing about building business systems, hiring people and building a team and managing a team effectively, or creating predictable outcomes for customers. I also didn't know much about sales and marketing or social media management. I didn't have a strategic approach to it. It was all kind of intuitive. Not to even mention finances and budgeting between the projects. So I was drowning in all this business work while trying to handle my engineering tasks. So one night, I remember I was up till literally 2 a.m. fixing some wrongly configured IT infrastructure for a client. My eyes were burning from staring at this terminal screen. I hadn't seen my friends in weeks because I was so busy with my engineering tasks and projects, and I still had a pile of tasks to do in the next few days. It was not getting less, it was just getting more and more every day. And I thought to myself, something had to change. I was working a lot, I was earning a lot as well, I was making a pretty decent revenue, but I basically had no life. And I also felt like I didn't have any leverage. And the worst part was that I knew that when I stopped working, all of the revenue streams actually would stop immediately as well. So the entire business was completely dependent on me continuing to work those 80-hour weeks. Fast forward now, I realize that this quote from E-Myth book perfectly described my situation back then. If your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you own a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you are working for a lunatic. And that lunatic was me. And I decided right then and there, in that moment, that I needed to take control. So I asked myself these two important questions. First, I asked, what is the goal of my business? Clear answer: to generate income that I could use to fuel the growth. Not to keep my passion of engineering alive so that I could, do those satisfying engineering tasks all day long and then kind of do the business stuff on the side. And the goal of the business was definitely not being a very highly paid engineer. So I got clarity on that first. And then I asked myself, what do I need to do as a business owner, not as an engineer, to achieve that goal? Again, answer was pretty clear. Remove myself as a bottleneck and build a system that would not depend on me and my engineering skills alone. Of course, I would still work fully in and on the business, but I would not be the bottleneck. My skills would not be 90% of the asset of the business, becoming the bottleneck that slowed down the company growth. But rather, I would become an accelerator that sped up the company growth. And again, looking back, I know that I intuitively made a decision to stop being just a technician and start being an entrepreneur. Now, let me share a story from the E-Myth book that really changed my perspective to tap into my entrepreneurial side even more. So one day, the author went into a hotel to stay for the night. It was just a random pick. And at that moment, one of the most enjoyable hotel experiences started for him. The way they greeted him in the reception, the fresh flowers in the room, a small handwritten note on the bed. Or next morning, his favorite newspaper was left at his hotel door. His favorite coffee was brought in the morning, which definitely made him wonder where they got all this information on his very first stay in the hotel. It kind of seemed like all the details were so perfectly orchestrated in this hotel for the most enjoyable guest experience. But here is what was interesting in this story. He went a second time and a third time, and the experience was the same every time. They had remembered his personal preferences about his coffee and newspaper. The arrangements in the room and the details were done exactly the same way. And that consistency surprised him. So when he was checking out from the hotel, he asked the manager, he said, how do you get your people to do such amazing work every time consistently without missing even the smallest details? How are you able to do that across so many employees for so many guests in such a consistent way? So the manager invited him into his office and he pulled out this thick binder, and inside the binder there was a step-by-step process for everything, how everything was done in this hotel, how to greet the guests, how to make beds, how to arrange the room, how to fold a toilet paper triangle, how to ask guests suddenly without them noticing for their various personal preferences, either during checkout, dinner, without making it obvious, and then how to document all that knowledge about customers in the central system. So every single detail was written out with perfectly guided instructions for all the employees, which means nothing was left to chance or individual interpretation. So they had created this system which was so detailed that anyone could follow it and deliver the same exact excellent experience. That was actually my light bulb moment. I needed to work on creating systems and processes that created consistent results in all areas of my business. Whether it was releasing a new YouTube video or onboarding a new customer or doing updates for our training materials and so on. There were so many areas in my business that I identified that will be transformed through having such systems. And by the way, that's exactly what they mean when they say you should work on your business, not just in it. And that means in a well-managed business, people do not run the business. The system runs the business. And people who are employed, including you as a founder, run the system. And again, when you think about it, the most successful business owners often are not the best technicians. Take Steve Jobs. He couldn't build computers. He understood a lot of details technically, so he was an engineer himself, but he wasn't the one who was able to put together the computers. Or take Richard Branson. He's a perfect example of building multi-billion-dollar businesses, multiple of them, without even having industry expertise in most of them. So what these people are brilliant at is building systems and hiring people who are the great technicians. There's this really interesting story where Steve Jobs was asked at the end of his career which of his products he was most proud of. Expecting an answer like, I don't know, iPhone or MacBook, he actually said the Macintosh team was his proudest achievement. And Mac team was basically the system that built all these products that we all know, right? The iPhones, iPads, MacBooks, and so on. Now back to our business, me and my co-founder had intuitively created automations in our business, but it was more of a gut feeling than an intentional framework. So reading this made it clear and made me prioritize building systems as my main task as a CEO over the technician job. So after reading this and it changing my perspective, I basically just doubled down on it. So when we started with our business, we literally took an automation tool, which is called Zapier, and created automated processes for new students or new customers enrolling, getting all the accesses, updating our CRM with all the important business data, because we didn't want to do these manual repetitive tasks ourselves. And later we created few processes here and there because I just couldn't keep up with an overview of things in business. So I needed to have some kind of a way to get an overall insight to what was happening. But learning about this showed me why creating processes was so important, and that it was literally the highest priority job for me as a founder and CEO. So what changed for me was that I literally started thinking in processes, which means every time I had to do a big task, I took a step back and I asked myself, does this task happen often? If yes, how can we create a process for it so that we get consistent results every time? For example, we had to hire an additional support for our customers, who was an engineer. Once hired, I had to onboard that person, explaining our guidelines for communicating with customers, like which tone of voice to use to be empathetic and helpful and polite, as well as technically top-notch engineer who can help with all the details and providing help, plus all the administrative parts, like providing accesses to all the tools that we used internally, explaining the purpose of each tool. Now, I knew that this would happen every time we hired another support engineer or replaced an existing one, if they quit, for example. So I would need to onboard them, go through the same list of this is how we serve and support our customers, these are all our internal tools, this is what you need access to, and so on. So when we had this new hire, instead of having a video call to explain all this, I actually created an onboarding course that documented everything in detail in a clearly structured way, like lectures and chapters and all the links and resources that were relevant. But more importantly, now if something changes, let's say we replace one of the internal tools for the customer support, or we discover an issue in our support that we want to fix or improve in the workflow, we edit in the course. And we ask every member of support to study it and to apply those changes to their work. So everyone goes through the same exact training and has access to the same complete set of instructions and guidelines. So it's not me basically jumping on a video call to quickly walk someone new through the main guidelines, but it's a complete and up-to-date set of instructions, clearly defined with images and links and everything in the video every hire for this specific role goes through. So there is no risk for me forgetting something or explaining more to one person and less to the other, or missing and forgetting some details, and so on. It worked perfectly, and it also reduced my effort and my time constraint. So once we completed this onboarding course for support engineer, I realized that we should do this for every role in our company. I asked every person in our team to create a detailed onboarding course describing their tasks and responsibilities, and more importantly, how they do each task. And then I myself edit any missing details or information to their documentation that they created. So now, whenever we hire a new person in an existing role, from executive assistant to course update manager to support engineer, the new person has a smooth step-by-step process of learning about our company, our values, how we work, what is a no-go, what is acceptable, what not, and also learning about his specific role and responsibilities, and taking over tasks in just 1 or 2 days, becoming productive in our ecosystem. But if it's a new role that we hadn't hired before, then we simply create a new onboarding course, sometimes together with the new hire, and we just improve it as we go and get experience. And guess what? This tremendously reduced my personal workload, because I don't need to train each and every new hire personally, while making sure the onboarding is smooth and easy for the new person, with very clear explanations from our side to how they're supposed to do their job. If they miss something, we can always refer them to the course, to the relevant section. Another game changer was something I learned from Tilman Fertitta's book called Shut Up and Listen. That's the name of the book. So this guy runs a huge multi-billion-dollar business with hundreds of restaurants, hotels, and casinos, all under one company. There is no way that one person could personally manage all that without serious systems in place. And there was one specific concept that I found extremely valuable from his book. So he has this 95-5 rule that fits perfectly with what we saw in the E-Myth hotel example. He says that most businesses do 95% right, but what makes a business stand out and makes it exceptional is the last 5% of their service, or the last 5% that they're willing to do extra on top. In his case, things like noticing cigarette butts in the parking lot, or spotting a smudged front door or a dirty door handle in the entrance, or finding mismatched chairs at the table, seeing a crooked picture on the wall. But think about this. It would be hard enough to make the last 5% perfect in just one hotel or restaurant, right? Now imagine managing all these details and these extra 5% in hundreds of restaurants and hotels as he does. So both examples from these two books teach the same thing. You can't run a successful business by just being good at cooking or coding or some specific trade. You need clear, repeatable processes that work even when you're not there. So that's how he grew from one restaurant to hundreds without everything falling apart. And it's also how you can scale your business without working yourself to death, which many business owners unfortunately get stuck at. Now here is where some business owners get it wrong. They think systems mean treating people like robots, like these replaceable things that they can just switch out as they need. Well, in the book number 3, called Business Made Simple, the author, Donald Miller, talks about this. Systems are not about controlling people. They are about clarity. So that means people actually perform better when they know exactly what's expected and how their specific tasks need to be done. When I first started creating processes in our business, honestly, some of my team members seemed pretty resistant. Remember I said that I asked them to document some of their own roles and responsibilities so that we could find other people for the same role. Logically, some people may feel threatened and kind of worry that they become easily replaceable. But then I realized that I was just handing down this task or project without context or without explanation to them. So I changed my approach and I did this instead. I explained the why behind each system. I asked directly for their input and I involved them in the process of creating the systems themselves and gave them ownership to improve those systems. But there was one really nice analogy of business that was my personal highlight from the book, Business Made Simple. Imagine your business is like an airplane. For the airplane to fly safely and smoothly, all its parts must work together as a system. So here's how each part of a business fits into this simple system. First, you have the wings. These are your products and services. The main things, the core basically that keeps your business up and moving forward. Then you have the engines, which basically represent your marketing and sales system, because engines drive growth and bring in customers. They kind of give you that supply of new demand. Then you have the body of the airplane, and this is your overhead and operations, how you organize and support everything behind the scenes. And finally, you have fuel, which stands for your cash flow, money needed to keep your business running. If fuel runs out, you can't fly the plane. So his point is that if any part is weak or out of balance, the whole business struggles. But when each part has a clear system and its own role, your business runs smoothly and can really take off. So building a strong business means making sure that all these plain parts or your systems work together, so you're not just focusing on one area, but rather making sure that that each part is functional and taken care of. So what was the hardest part of the journey for me after learning all these lessons and implementing them? Well, I had to give up a lot of the technician work that I loved. No more spending days solving some complex engineering puzzles and losing myself in these challenging but also enjoyable technical tasks. And that was tough, but here's what I gained. First of all, a business that doesn't collapse if I take a vacation, but also the ability to scale my business and what we do beyond my personal capacity and my personal skills. I also got team members who are growing and thriving because they are taking more of the ownership of different parts of the business. And finally, more time to focus on the vision and strategy. And honestly, watching my team tackle technical challenges and grow in my business context has become even more satisfying than doing it myself. But you know what the best part of building a system or a business is? Versus becoming the best expert in the world at your craft? For me, that's the ability to build something bigger than yourself. Something that can continue to grow and create opportunities for others beyond your personal capabilities. Because you're still one person. You have finite amount of time and finite skills. So if you are a technician who's started a business or who is thinking about starting a business, I really hope that this resonates with you. The skills that made you great at your craft are not the same ones you need to build a successful business. But very important, that doesn't mean you can't learn them. It just means that just like you learned your craft in whatever trade you're in, the same way you need to now learn the craft of business. So as the most actionable step, start documenting your processes, even if it's just for yourself at the beginning, even if you are the only one working in your business. And once you start hiring, use those systems to train people. Build systems that do not depend on you alone. And remember what Gerber said, the purpose of your business is to serve your life, not the other way around. Now, I would love to hear your experiences. in the comments, especially if this resonated with you. Have you been stuck in this technician's trap, or do you feel like you are currently in it? Have you broken free already? Let me know below and share it with the community as well. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.